Hey guys, so let me start by pointing out the obvious. Yes, this is filmed off my iPhone, and yes, the production is hopefully nowhere near as good as normal without trying to blow my own trumpet on the normal stuff. It's not amazing, but I normally do try and make an effort to make sure the shots are clean and the sound's perfect and everything. This one's a little different. I'm currently revising for an exam, which falls right in the Fiji waiting period. So unfortunately this one is pretty low tech just to get a video up and share some stuff. I don't want to miss one. I know there's a few guys out there now who are enjoying them and using them. So this is just an effort to get something online. So hopefully you guys appreciate it, and I promise that come J-Bay we'll be back on usual schedule. I'll try and do a preview with the general good performers at the event, and then I will try and do a second video finalising what my team is. For this video I'm just going to run through what my teams are. I'm not going to do a full surf forecast like I normally would, but I've got a few notes to go through and share some thoughts with you and share my team with you. So with no further ado, I have them written down. As I say, this is really low budget, badly prepared, so again apologies, but if you're watching this for the first time, you'll have to believe me when I say the normal ones are slightly better prepared. If you press subscribe, you'll no doubt see the one that I'll do before the J-Bay event. No fancy pictures or anything in this one, just straight up what my team is. So first, obviously the most important thing, since I'm jumping into straight away what the team's going to be, is the surf. The surf is looking pretty small, it's not looking great. I watched the women's event. I didn't actually see what the forecast was beforehand, but I'm pretty sure the forecasted heights for the men's waiting period are slightly worse. There's a little pulse right at the end of it, but that's like 2 weeks away nearly. So things can change. We may end up with not even that coming through. Hopefully we do, but it's looking quite small. Not as small as 2014. I looked back at the historical data on Magic Seaweed for that. I'll put a link below to Magic Seaweed's forecast page for this event, for the waiting period that's coming up. If you are a pro, if you have a premium pro membership with them, you'll see the whole waiting period. If not, you'll get the start of it. You'll see that there's a bit of surf not the first few days. I think 3 or 4 days in, you get a bit of surf over the first weekend, and then we're looking like the second weekend in the waiting period. There's maybe another pulse. So we'll see what they do. I'll no doubt have to pick the eyes out of it and try and tally that up with some good wins as well. So my team, as I say, although it's looking small, it's not looking quite as small as we had in 2014 when Gabriel Medina just dominated the event, and it was quite not a strange year. There was certainly a few of the usual suspects did quite well, but there was a lot of other guys who maybe did better than they usually would at Fiji. So I've kind of looked at the results for that year. Tried to pull out some of the guys from there, but also the surf does get a bit bigger than that year, so maybe barrels will factor into it as usual. It's usually really heavily based on barrels. Look at Owen Wright's 10s from last year. But I think this year the ability to do some good turns on the open face is going to be really beneficial as well. So my team that I've done this time, kind of the way I do it every time, but more so this time because I've been doing things in a rush, is largely based on the Surfer Mag version of Fancy Surfer. Then I've just tweaked it slightly for the WSL version. So my team for Fancy Surfer on the Surfer Mag site is John Florence. So where you'd expect the guy to perform well in, coming from Hawaii. We all know it suits his style really well. He's got a good run of results there. 2013 he got to the semis, 2014 he got to the quarters, and that was the small year as well. So if we do have mixed surf there, he's proved that he can surf in them both. He didn't get a result there in 15, he didn't compete. I assume he was injured, I can't remember off the top of my head. I know he did have some injury at some point though, so that might be that one. Italo Ferreira is my next pick. He's only surfed there once historically before in the facts. 2015 he got all the way to the quarters, so a pretty good result. This year he's surfing amazingly well. He's second in the Championship Tour rankings, so he's proving that he's having a good year there too. Seems like a sensible pick to me. Next up, Nat Young. Not bad results actually. It's not a wave I typically think of Nat being good at when I think Nat Young. But he's in 2014 got to the quarters, and in 2013 got to round 5. He had a 5th place finish at Brazil, so he's on good form. And as I say, with the surf not looking too big and it coming down to turns, I think it could really benefit him, especially if he does end up in some heats where turns are a deciding factor. Next up, we've got Jeremy Flores. It's a wave I expect him to do good in general. He's always been good on left-hand reef breaks. I think if it becomes small, it may not benefit him as much as some of the other guys. But I think, like I said, we're going to be on that line where maybe some barrels do come into it slightly, and he has got a rail game too, so he's pretty good price at the moment, and his previous results, he's had a 2013 at around 5 finish, and 2015 he had a semis. A bit of a mixed bag this year from Jeremy, but he's made my team basically on what I had left of the budget at the end. I thought he was the best I could get in there. Next up, Michel Perez. I always reluctant to put Michel in my teams. He's a great surfer when he's surfing well, but he seems so erratic in his results in competition. He's sorry, I'm reviewing my notes. So he's not had a blistering year this year, but he's certainly been consistent with no first round exits. That is something I look for in my team. Ultimately, if you can get everyone through round 1 and 2, you're starting to rack up more and more points then. So it's always something I try and personally do with my teams. In 2014, Michel got to a semis. Again, that was the year when it was small and it came down to rail game. So again, relying on it being surfed where rail game counts, I think Michel could put in a good result, especially if it's going to be smaller this year. The other thing to factor in is when Michel's had his good results, it's been on his backhand. So hopefully, again, it's left-hander. He could all line up in his favour. Next up, Kaiwa Belly, a bit of an unknown. He's in my team. I've got him for not an amazing price. I've not had him in from the start of the year, but I'm definitely keen to keep him in there as we go into the back end and we enter the beach breaks. So hopefully he puts in a good showing. There's no previous form there to assess him against, with it being his first year on tour. He's currently placed 9th, which isn't too bad. He's in the top 10, which is certainly not bad for a rookie on tour. So he's had a good run of form so far this year, and if he can continue that, I think it could be a good one for your team. Mike Wilkinson, not necessarily in there because I think he'll perform well at Fiji, but his first flop of the year was Brazil. Everything else from that he's had a faultless year, and I have to say that his heat in Brazil, it wasn't that he surfed terribly. I think he got a bit unlucky. I can't remember who it was that knocked him out, but the wild card got the wave right at the end and put him out, which was a bit unfortunate for Matty. But I've got him for a good price still. I've had him in there from the start of the year. Going into J-Bay next, I want to keep him in my team at least until then, and then I'll reassess what price I've got him for at that stage. Next up, Parko. I was left in a position where there's so many of the sort of surfers that you generally consider good at Fiji in the mid-range at the moment. Guys like Kelly that have not had great years. Another one, Mick Fanning. He's not so cheap, but obviously on his sabbatical you can't judge his form at the moment, so I didn't want to really put him in there just in case. Obviously Mick, I'd normally expect him to perform really well at Fiji, but in this instance I decided against it. Went for Parko. Looking at his previous form, he's had quarters in 15 and 13 and around 5 in 14, so all pretty good results. This year as well, he's not had the best of year, but he's not had the worst either. I mean, look at him compared to Kelly Slater. Of the two, Joe got my pick. The next thing I wanted to comment on that was that his first heats with Andino and Slater, which both of those guys are sort of fly or die surfers that Chloe will either put in an amazing event and do really well, or he probably won't get past round 2. Slater the same. If he gets past round 2 and gets warmed up, Fiji's a pet event for him and he might do well, but I'm really hoping that Parko can be the one that comes out the gate, just puts in that Mr. Consistent heat that he does, and is the one that progresses through. So then my other team, as I said, is largely based on that. I've tried to pull it all over. The only differences, I believe, were because obviously the pricing structures on the Surf Mag version differ to the way they categorise the surfers on the World Surf League version. So the only differences I've had in there, I've got Josh Kerr in my WSL team. Fiji, pretty good event for him. He's one of those guys who can surf well in big, small airs, turns, barrels. So I thought it fitted that idea of trying to get it in that surf where it's going to be in between. I think you can probably make heats that are either type of waves. I also have Gabriel Medina is in my team for the World Surf League. He's really good, obviously, at Brazil. He's back on form this year. He was the winner at Fiji in 2014. Up until Brazil, he'd had sparks of brilliance this year, but he's very expensive on the Surf Mag version. With him being in the middle bracket on the World Surf League version, I thought it was worth a pick, and none of my other surfers I could pull across from there, so that's why he made it in there. Mick Fanning, again, as I said before with the Surfer Mag version, he's still quite expensive on there. Didn't want to put him in there and risk it with him being on the sabbatical that he's on, but he was in the middle bracket for the World Surf League version, and he's had a round 5 finish 2015, quarters finish in 14, and finaled in 2013. So he's certainly got a good run of form at Fiji. The only reason I'm not putting him in my Surf Mag version is the price and not being able to assess what form he's on. I don't want to say anybody I wouldn't pick for Fiji. I know that going into Brazil, there was a lot of talk about it being a really unpredictable event, but I kind of think Fiji is, because looking back to 2014, I always thought it was a really easy event to pick for. You just pick someone who's good in barrels, good on turns, but then when the swell didn't come through and it was a small event, there was quite a lot of surprises and a lot of big names going out early. So I want to talk about a question mark, and I think it has to be Kelly Slater. He's going to be potentially really highly picked, I think, by a lot of people. Everyone still loves him. People pick their Surfing Mag teams and their WSL team based on who they like as much as who's surfing well. So he's going to get into a lot of teams potentially. He's got an amazing track record at Fiji, but he's just not shown any spark of brilliance this year. I talked about how a few of the other guys haven't got out to the start they'd normally get out to, but Kelly's probably been the worst. Everybody, I think, is wanting him to turn it around, but if he carries on the way he's going, he could well be dropping off tour this year, which I don't want to see. I don't think anyone wants to see. And in his defence, he's around about now, once we start getting into the left-hand reef breaks, the more serious waves and back end of the season, that he does sometimes pull it together, and let's hope he does. But I've personally thought it was too big a risk to put in my fancy surfer team. I'd love to know what you guys think though. They're my picks for both teams. I know that was a bit disjointed. I haven't, as I say, had the proper screenshots up. I'll try and get some screenshots on my Facebook, Instagram and Twitter of what my final team selections were, so you can see them. But I'd love to know what you guys have picked too, so let us know in the comments below. If you've liked the video, please press like, and as I say, if you're not a usual subscriber to the channel, if you press subscribe, my video for J-Bay will be much smoother hopefully than this. It won't be filmed off an iPhone, and we will have some pictures in there and everything to support everything. We'll go a bit more into the break and do it in 2 parts as usual. If you are on either WSL Surfer Mag or Fancy Surfer on the Surfer Mag version, please go to the clubs, search for Surfing Connoisseur and join the club. It's great to play along with you guys. Cheers for watching, and check back soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.